Dr. Kim Hyun-woo adjusted his glasses nervously as he watched the massive alien ships descend through Earth's atmosphere. The crystalline vessels were beautiful in a terrifying way, their surfaces reflecting sunlight like giant diamonds against the blue sky. He stood at the back of the United Nations Assembly Hall in New York, his heart pounding as representatives from every nation on Earth gathered for humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. The Thylaurian ambassador emerged from a shimmering portal that appeared in the center of the hall. Veltar was tall and elegant, his translucent skin glowing with an inner light that made him look almost godlike. But when he spoke, his voice carried the tone of an adult addressing particularly slow children. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Veltar began, his words somehow understood by everyone despite being spoken in an alien language. "We are the Thylaurian Empire, rulers of 47 star systems and shepherds to countless species across this galaxy." President Park Ji-min of South Korea leaned forward in her seat, trying to project confidence despite the overwhelming situation. Around her, other world leaders shifted uncomfortably as holographic displays materialized above their heads, showing Earth's achievements throughout history. "Your species has accomplished some interesting things," Veltar continued, gesturing dismissively at images of the pyramids, the Great Wall, and humanity's first steps on the moon. "You've managed to reach your own satellite. How adorable. The Thylaurians achieved faster-than-light travel when your ancestors were still learning to make fire." Dr. Kim felt his jaw clench as nervous laughter rippled through the assembly. He glanced across the room at Dr. Lee So-young, who sat in the observer section with other scientists. Her expression mirrored his own frustration, but there was something else in her eyes. A knowing look that reminded him of their secret work beneath the Seoul Quantum Research Facility. The alien ambassador waved his hand, and new images appeared, showing sleek spacecraft, floating cities, and technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. "We have traveled the stars for over 10,000 of your years," Veltar announced proudly. "We have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, guided primitive species toward enlightenment, and maintained peace across vast regions of space." "What do you want from us?" asked President Martinez of Brazil, her voice steady despite the intimidating circumstances. Veltar's expression became almost pitying. "We offer you protection, of course. A place under our wing as a junior species in the galactic community. Your crude nuclear weapons will be dismantled for your own safety. Your primitive rockets will be retired as unnecessary. We will guide you toward proper civilization." Dr. Kim's hands formed fists at his sides. The condescension in the alien's voice was unbearable, but he forced himself to remain calm. In the depths of his research facility, hidden beneath layers of conventional physics experiments, lay humanity's greatest secret, something that would wipe that smug expression off Veltar's face forever. Over the following days, as the Thylaurians established orbital stations above Earth's major cities, their personnel made no effort to hide their amusement at human technology. News broadcasts showed young Thylaurian officials touring human facilities, pointing and laughing at computers they called Stone Age calculators, and vehicles they described as barely functional metal boxes. During a visit to NASA's Kennedy Space Center, a Thylaurian engineer picked up a tablet computer and shook his head in mock sympathy. "Poor little humans," he said to his companion, not caring that his words were being broadcast live. "They think this counts as advanced technology. It's like watching children play with wooden blocks." The humiliation was systematic and deliberate. When human scientists presented their latest research on quantum mechanics, Thylaurian observers yawned openly. When engineers demonstrated new propulsion systems, the aliens chuckled and made jokes about cute attempts at spaceflight. But Dr. Kim and his team continued their work in secret, knowing their moment would come. Deep beneath Seoul, in chambers hidden from both human governments and alien sensors, they prepared for the day when humanity would reveal its true capabilities. Dr. Park Soo-jin, the facility's chief engineer, monitored energy readings from their most classified project. "The temporal field generators are maintaining perfect stability," she reported quietly to Dr. Kim during one of their midnight sessions. All worldwide facilities are synchronized and ready. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung looked up from his calculations, his eyes bright with anticipation. The Thylorians have no idea what's coming, he whispered. Their sensors can't even detect our technology. They're so arrogant, so convinced of their superiority, that they've missed the most important thing about humanity. Which is? Asked Dr. Lee So-young, though she already knew the answer. Dr. Kim smiled grimly as he watched news footage of more Thylorian mockery on the monitors around them. We never show all our cards at once. 6 months had crawled by since the Thylorians arrived, and life on Earth had become a nightmare of constant humiliation. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo stood in his laboratory, watching the morning news with growing anger, as reporter Choi Min-ho delivered another devastating update. The Thylorian Development Council has rejected humanity's fusion power proposal for the 3rd time this month, Choi announced, his professional composure barely hiding his frustration. Ambassador Veltar called our clean energy research dangerous, experiments with forces beyond human comprehension, and suggested we focus on more appropriate technologies like improved farming tools. Dr. Kim switched off the screen in disgust. Through his laboratory window, he could see one of the massive Thylorian monitoring stations hovering over Seoul, its blue lights scanning the city below like the eyes of some cosmic predator. Similar stations floated above every major population center on Earth, watching, controlling, judging. The restrictions had started small but grown worse each week. First, the Thylorians had limited human access to certain materials, claiming they were too advanced for safe handling. Then they began relocating entire communities to what they called optimization zones, carefully planned settlements where humans could be properly supervised while learning to live according to Thylorian standards. Dr. Park Soo-jin burst into the lab, her face flushed with anger. They've done it again, she said, throwing a data pad onto the nearest desk. The Thylorians just shut down the particle accelerator in Geneva. They said it posed unacceptable risks to galactic stability. What was their excuse this time? Dr. Kim asked, though he already knew the answer would be infuriating. They claimed human scientists don't understand the fundamental nature of reality well enough to operate such equipment safely, Park replied, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Apparently, we need another 50 years of guided development before we can be trusted with our own technology. Dr. Lee So-young looked up from her workstation in the corner, where she'd been monitoring communications from their hidden facilities around the world. It's not just Geneva, she said quietly. They're systematically shutting down every major research facility on the planet. MIT, Cambridge, Tokyo Institute of Technology, all closed for safety evaluations. The cruelest part wasn't just the restrictions themselves, but the way the Thylorians announced them. Their press conferences had become theatrical performances of condescension, with alien officials speaking to human leaders like disappointed parents addressing naughty children. Dr. Kim remembered the previous week's announcement when Veltar had stood before the United Nations Security Council to explain why humanity's space program was being temporarily suspended. Your rockets are charming in their primitive simplicity, the ambassador had said, his glowing form radiating superiority. But they're roughly equivalent to a child playing with firecrackers. We simply cannot allow such dangerous toys to continue operating while you learn proper spaceflight techniques. The worst part was the laughter. Not just from the Thylorians, but from some humans who had begun to believe the aliens were right. Dr. Kim had watched in horror as news programs featured human experts agreeing that maybe humanity wasn't ready for advanced technology after all. Perhaps we should be grateful for their guidance, one university professor had said during a televised panel discussion. If beings this advanced are concerned about our development, maybe we should listen. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung entered the bright lab carrying a cup of coffee and wearing the same grim expression they all shared these days. The situation in the optimization zones is getting worse, he reported. My cousin was relocated to the facility outside Busan last month. He says they're treated like animals in a zoo, fed, housed, and studied, but never allowed to make their own decisions. The Thylorians had even begun recruiting young humans to serve as cultural ambassadors, teaching them to mock their own species' achievements. Videos had started appearing online of human teenagers laughing at historical human accomplishments, parroting Thylorian talking points about humanity's adorable limitations. Dr. Kim felt sick watching these collaborators, but he understood their desperation. The Thylorians offered special privileges to humans who embraced their guidance: better housing, access to alien entertainment, even the chance to visit other worlds as servants or pets. "They're breaking our spirit systematically," Dr. Park observed, settling into her chair with a heavy sigh, "making us doubt our own worth, our own achievements. It's psychological warfare." But down in the hidden levels, beneath their feet, hope still burned. The Temporal Displacement Project continued in absolute secrecy, shielded from alien sensors by technology the Thylorians couldn't even detect. Similar facilities in Moscow, London, and Tokyo maintained perfect synchronization, all waiting for the moment to strike back. Dr. Lee checked her encrypted communications one more time. "All stations report ready," she whispered. "The temporal field generators are stable worldwide. We're just waiting for the final authorization." Dr. Kim nodded, his jaw set with determination. Above them, the Thylorians continued their systematic humiliation of humanity, convinced of their absolute superiority. They had no idea that their victims were about to become their masters. "Soon," he promised his team. "Very soon, they'll learn what happens when you underestimate the human spirit." The resistance meeting took place in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Seoul, far from Thylorian surveillance. President Park Ji-min arrived wearing a maintenance worker's uniform, her face hidden beneath a worn baseball cap. Around her, leaders from across the globe had gathered in secret. The Prime Minister of Japan disguised as a delivery driver, the Chancellor of Germany dressed like a street cleaner, and dozens of others who had risked everything to attend this clandestine gathering. Dr. Kim Hyun-woo stepped forward, his heart racing as he prepared to reveal humanity's greatest secret. For months, he had watched his species suffer under alien mockery and control. Tonight, everything would change. "What I'm about to show you will sound impossible," he began, his voice echoing in the concrete tunnel. "But I need you to trust me completely." He led the group through a hidden maintenance door that opened with his biometric scan. Behind it lay an elevator that descended far deeper than any subway system should go. The leaders exchanged nervous glances as they traveled down into the Earth's depths. When the elevator doors opened, gasps echoed through the confined space. Before them stretched a massive underground facility that rivaled anything the Thylorians had built. Gleaming corridors stretched in every direction, filled with technology that seemed both alien and distinctly human. "Welcome to Project Kronos," Dr. Kim announced as they walked through hallways lined with quantum computers and energy conduits. "This facility has been operational for over 20 years, built in complete secrecy by an international coalition of scientists." President Park stared at the advanced equipment surrounding them. "How is this possible? The Thylorians monitor everything. Their sensors should have detected this long ago." Dr. Lee So-young joined them as they entered the main laboratory, her face bright with pride despite the circumstances. "That's because this technology predates their civilization by thousands of years," she explained. "We didn't invent it. We reverse-engineered it from fragments we found." She gestured to a display case in the center of the room, where twisted metal and crystal fragments were carefully preserved behind reinforced glass. The pieces glowed with a faint inner light that seemed to pulse with mysterious energy. In 1953, something crashed in the mountains near the Korean DMZ. Dr. Park Soo-jin continued the explanation. The military covered it up, but a small team of scientists was secretly assigned to study the wreckage. What they found changed everything. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung activated a holographic display that showed the crash site from decades ago. The craft wasn't Thylorian. It was much, much older. Our analysis suggests it belonged to a civilization that existed millions of years before the Thylorians even evolved. The world leaders stared in amazement as the hologram showed the painstaking process of reverse engineering the alien technology. Decades of work by humanity's brightest minds, all conducted in absolute secrecy. The breakthrough came 15 years ago when we finally understood what this technology actually does, Dr. Kim explained, leading them toward the facility's central chamber. It doesn't just travel through space, it travels through time. The Mwanda, massive doors slid open to reveal humanity's greatest achievement. The temporal displacement engine filled the entire chamber, its crystalline core pulsing with barely contained energy. Streams of exotic matter flowed through transparent tubes while quantum field generators hummed with power that could reshape reality itself. President Park reached out toward the machine before catching herself. "You're telling me we've had time travel technology this whole time?" "Not just had it, we've been using it," Dr. Lee revealed with a slight smile. "For the past 5 years, we've been sending research teams throughout galactic history, studying the rise and fall of civilizations. Across the galaxy, Dr. Yoon activated another holographic display, this one showing the brutal truth about their alien oppressors. The Thylorians weren't always the dominant species they pretend to be. 2,000 years ago, they were slaves themselves, conquered and humiliated by an empire called the Valdorian hegemony. The assembled leaders watched in shocked silence as historical recordings showed young Thylorians being mocked and controlled by their crystalline masters, forced to serve as entertainment and labor for a superior civilization. They gained their freedom only when the Valdorian Empire collapsed from internal corruption." Dr. Kim continued. "But instead of breaking the cycle of oppression, they simply became the oppressors themselves. They've conquered dozens of species, using the exact same methods that were once used against them." President Park studied the historical data with growing understanding. "They're repeating their own trauma, passing it on to others because they never learned to heal from it." "Exactly," Dr. Park Soo-jin nodded. "And we have proof of their entire timeline, every conquest, every act of cruelty, every moment of weakness in their empire's history." Dr. Kim gestured toward monitoring stations where human technicians tracked temporal fluctuations across the galaxy. "We've mapped their civilization completely. We know when every Thylorian leader was born, when their key technologies were developed, when their empire will eventually fall." The German chancellor stepped forward, her voice filled with awe and terror. "If you can travel through time, then you can change everything," Dr. Kim finished. "We can prevent their empire from ever existing. We can undo their conquest of Earth before it even happens. We can rewrite galactic history itself." The silence that followed was deafening as the implications sank in. Humanity possessed the ultimate weapon, not just against the Thylorians, but against any force in the universe. They held the power to reshape reality according to their will. "The question now," President Park said slowly, "is what we choose to do with this power." The Galactic Council chambers aboard the massive Thylorian flagship buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from 47 different species had gathered to witness what they believed would be a routine formality, the official subjugation of Earth and the classification of humanity as a protected junior species under Thylorian control. Ambassador Veltar stood at the center of the crystalline amphitheater, his translucent form glowing with satisfaction as he prepared to deliver the final terms of Earth's surrender. Around him, alien delegates from across the galaxy watched with mild interest, having seen this ceremony dozens of times before with other conquered worlds. "Esteemed members of the Council," Veltar began, his voice carrying the tone of someone announcing a foregone conclusion. "Today we formalize the integration of the human species into our galactic community. Their primitive technology and limited understanding of universal principles make them ideal candidates for guided development under our supervision." The massive viewing screens around the chamber displayed images of Earth's cities, now dotted with Thylorian monitoring stations. Statistics scrolled past showing human population centers, resource availability, and projected timelines for complete integration into the Empire. "The humans have shown remarkable compliance during their adjustment period," Veltar continued smugly. "Their resistance movements have been minimal and easily contained. We project full civilization within 50 of their solar years. That's when the impossible happened." A shimmering distortion appeared in the center of the council chamber, causing several alien delegates to recoil in alarm. The air itself seemed to twist and bend as energy crackled through the space. And suddenly, Dr. Kim Hyun-woo materialized before their eyes, not as a hologram or transmission, but physically present in the room. The council erupted in chaos. Delegates jumped from their seats, security alarms blared, and Veltar's glowing form flickered with shock. Mastery of stable temporal displacement was considered theoretical, even among the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Temporal field stable, came Dr. Park Soo-jin's voice through Dr. Kim's hidden communicator. You're exactly 3 months in the past, at the original council meeting where they decided Earth's fate. Dr. Kim stood calmly amid the panic, his simple human clothing a stark contrast to the elaborate alien attire surrounding him. He raised his hand, and the chamber gradually fell silent as curiosity overcame fear. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the massive space. I am Dr. Kim Hyun-woo of Earth, and I bring evidence that will change your understanding of this situation entirely. Veltar recovered from his shock enough to stammer a response. This is impossible. Humans don't possess temporal technology. You're barely capable of reaching your own moon. Dr. Kim smiled calmly and activated a holographic projector from his pocket, technology that made even the advanced Thylorian equipment look primitive. The images that appeared above the council chamber showed scenes that made several delegates gasp in recognition. 2,000 years ago, Dr. Kim announced, the Thylorian species was enslaved by the Valdorian hegemony. Young Thylorians were forced to serve as entertainment and labor, mocked for their primitive understanding of crystal technology, relocated to optimization camps for proper supervision. The holographic display showed historical recordings of Thylorian suffering, scenes of Veltar's own ancestors being humiliated and controlled by their crystalline masters. The ambassador's form flickered with rage and embarrassment, as his species' darkest period was exposed before the entire galaxy. How dare you? Veltar shouted. Those records are classified. No species has access to pre-hegemony historical data. Another distortion appeared, and Dr. Lee So-young materialized beside Dr. Kim, having traveled from a different temporal coordinate. Her arrival sent fresh waves of shock through the assembled delegates. We have access because we've been there, she stated matter-of-factly. Humanity has mapped the complete timeline of galactic civilization. We've witnessed the rise and fall of empires across millions of years, including the eventual collapse of your own. The Galactic Council fell into stunned silence as the implications sank in. These supposedly primitive humans possessed technology that allowed them to travel freely through time itself, observing history as it unfolded. Dr. Yoon Jae-sung's voice crackled through their communicators from the Seoul facility. All temporal anchors are holding steady. You can stay as long as needed. Dr. Kim activated another holographic display, this one showing the Thylorian Empire's future timeline. Rebellions, economic collapse, and the eventual fragmentation of their civilization into scattered colonies. Your empire follows the same pattern as every oppressive regime throughout history, he explained to the terrified council. You repeat the cycle of abuse you once suffered, creating the very conditions that will destroy you within 3 centuries. The delegate from the Zeridian Collective, a species that had long resented Thylorian dominance, leaned forward with interest. You claim to have witnessed our future as well? Every civilization's future, Dr. Lee confirmed. We've seen which species learn to break cycles of oppression, and which ones perpetuate them until they collapse under their own contradictions. Veltar's form was now flickering wildly with fear as he realized the full scope of humanity's capabilities. What do you want? He whispered. Dr. Kim's expression remained calm, but his words carried the weight of absolute power. We want what every species deserves, the right to develop freely without oppression, and we have the ability to ensure it happens. The silence stretched for long moments before Dr. Kim delivered the final blow. We could prevent your liberation from the Valdorians entirely, he said quietly. One small change in your timeline, and your entire civilization simply never develops past the slave stage. Your empire, your technology, your very existence could be erased from history as if it never happened. The chamber fell into absolute silence as the cosmic significance of this moment became clear to everyone present. 3 years had passed since that fateful day in the Galactic Council chambers, and the universe had transformed in ways no one could have imagined. Dr. Kim Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Galactic Temporal Institute in Seoul, watching as delegates from across the galaxy waited patiently in the gardens below for their scheduled meetings with human temporal advisors. The sight still amazed him. Beings who had once dismissed humanity as primitive now traveled across star systems to seek Earth's guidance. The power dynamic hadn't just shifted, it had completely reversed through humanity's mastery of time itself. President Park Ji-min joined him at the window, her expression mixing satisfaction with the weight of enormous responsibility. The Andromedan delegation has been waiting 3 days for their appointment, she mentioned, gesturing toward a group of tall, ethereal beings seated peacefully beneath the cherry trees. They want our help preventing a civil war that our temporal scouts say will devastate their home system in 50 years. Dr. Kim nodded thoughtfully. The temporal accords, signed by every major civilization in the galaxy, had established humanity as the guardians of galactic history. Conflicts were now resolved through temporal mediation rather than warfare, with human time travelers serving as neutral observers who could show species the long-term consequences of their actions. It's ironic, Dr. Park Soo-jin said as she approached with a datapad full of scheduling requests. The same species that once mocked our primitive understanding of physics now line up for months just to consult with our temporal research teams. The transformation had begun immediately after the council meeting. Word of humanity's temporal mastery spread through the galaxy like wildfire, causing panic among aggressive civilizations and hope among oppressed species. The Thylaurian Empire, faced with the possibility of having their entire timeline erased, had been the first to beg for mercy. Dr. Kim remembered that moment vividly. Ambassador Veltar, his crystalline form flickering with terror, had prostrated himself before the human delegation and pleaded for his species' continued existence. "We were wrong," the former ambassador had whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "Please don't condemn our entire civilization for our mistakes. We can change. We will change." Instead of revenge, humanity had chosen a different path. Dr. Lee So-young had proposed the Temporal Rehabilitation Program, allowing aggressive species to witness the full consequences of their actions across time while offering guidance toward more peaceful development. Now, Veltar served as a junior researcher in the very facility where he had once planned humanity's subjugation. Dr. Kim could see him through the window, tending to one of the experimental gardens where temporal distortions allowed plants from different eras to grow together in impossible harmony. "How is our former ambassador adapting to his new role?" President Park asked with gentle amusement. "Better than expected," Dr. Yoon Jae-sung replied, joining their conversation. "He's actually become quite skilled at temporal botany. Yesterday, he successfully grew a flower that exists simultaneously in 3 different time periods." The Thylaurians weren't the only species undergoing transformation. The Galactic Temporal Institute now hosted research teams from dozens of civilizations, all working together to understand the deeper patterns of existence and prevent the cycles of conflict that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. Dr. Kim watched as a group of human children played in the courtyard below, while their alien visitors observed with fascination. What amazed him most wasn't the advanced technology or the political changes, but how quickly the galaxy's youth had adapted to this new reality. "The young ones adapt fastest," Dr. Park Soo-jin observed, following his gaze. "Children from every species seem to understand intuitively that cooperation creates better outcomes than domination." The temporal monitoring stations that Dr. Lee So-young oversaw had become the galaxy's early warning system against conflict. When aggressive impulses arose in any civilization, humanity's time travelers would arrive to show the potential consequences. And not as threats but as teachers helping others understand the mathematical certainty that violence ultimately destroys both victim and aggressor. "We prevented 17 wars last month alone," Dr. Lee reported as she joined the group on the Seir observation deck. The Cephalid Consortium was planning to invade the mineral-rich worlds of the Outer Rim, but when we showed them the century of guerrilla warfare that would follow, they chose diplomatic resource-sharing agreements instead. The most remarkable change had been in humanity itself. The species that had once been mocked for its limitations now carried the weight of galactic responsibility with quiet dignity. Human temporal advisors were known throughout the galaxy for their patience and wisdom, helping other species learn from history rather than simply imposing solutions. Dr. Kim's communicator chimed with an incoming message from the London facility. The African Union delegation has arrived for their consultation about the asteroid mining protocols, the voice reported. They're requesting a full temporal impact assessment before proceeding. Send them to Conference Room 7, Dr. Kim replied. Dr. Yoon will handle their consultation. As the sun set over Seoul, casting long shadows across the facility that had become the center of galactic governance, Dr. Kim reflected on how far they'd all come. 3 years ago, humanity had been on the verge of enslavement. Now they were the guardians of galactic peace, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the patient application of temporal wisdom. The universe had entered a new age, one where the consequences of actions echoed both forward and backward through time, guided by humanity's understanding that true power came from breaking cycles of harm rather than perpetuating them. In the gardens below, former enemies worked side by side. Their children played together without fear, and the future stretched ahead bright with possibilities that could only exist when civilizations chose cooperation over conquest.